Though the mass media has been awash with the crisis in Gaza, and rightfully so, the situation in Sudan is also quite similarly very alarming. This video will attempt to provide a brief explanation of what has been going on the ground in Sudan. Following on from Sudan's independence in the mid-20th century, there have been prolonged periods of military rule. In 2019, long-term authoritarian leader Omar al-Bashir was ousted following months of mass protest. He had overseen a controversial 3 decades in power, which saw civil war and strife. Most notably, in the year 2000, Bashir's army brutally put down a rebellion that is reported to have killed approximately 300,000 people, displacing 2.7 million more. Motivated by outside forces, this pattern of power struggle within Sudan has continued to this very day, and it actually explains the current war taking place on the ground. Following Bashir's deposition in 2019, a transitional sovereignty council was established to oversee a process towards democratic elections. The path towards democracy, however, was halted when Burhan, alongside his deputy Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, orchestrated a coup in October 2021. This violated the previous power-sharing arrangement of the Sovereignty Council. Who is this figure that we've just mentioned? Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo. He is better known as Hemedti. He is a Sudanese general and the leader of the RPF, the Rapid Spirit Forces. Hemedti worked closely with the longtime dictator Omar Bashir, and he acquired during that period great control over gold mines in Darfur from a rival leader. And this individual has for long had his eyes on power, eventually participating in the coup against Bashir in 2019, once he sensed a shift in the political landscape. His troops were accused of massacring over 100 protesters during this period and committing acts of rape. And after this, Hemedti claimed that his role in the 2021 coup was actually in order to bring stability to the country. And of course, many have doubted this and refer to a track record of cold, power-motivated calculations to better explain his actions. What we are left with is a history of both Burhan and Hemedti performing movements which lead to an increase in their personal power and political power. And specifically in the case of Hemedti, we have a case of him switching sides whenever it's convenient, essentially, to increase his personal and financial stake in Sudan. In late 2022, an agreement was reached between Hemedti's RSF, the Sudanese army under Burhan, and various pro-democracy groups to integrate the RSF into the army's structure. Under mounting pressure, the SAF, the Sudanese Armed Forces, agreed to transfer power to a civilian government. This new arrangement actually led to tensions arising between Burhan and Hemedti, because what it led to is essentially Hemedti's RSF going under Burhan's SAF, the Sudanese army. Worried about his power position and incentivized by supporting outside forces, in April 2023, the RSF would initiate attacks against SAF positions in Khartoum, initiating the current episode of violence. The RSF, which has a history of unleashing violence on civilian populations within Sudan, has since continued in brutalizing populations of areas that it has actually entered. Women in Sudan have reported mass rape by RSF fighters, and it doesn't help the matter that RSF fighters have actually come out publicly and bragged about doing so. There are also videos published by Al Jazeera, filmed by RSF fighters, of them executing Sudanese civilians. And of course, as you can imagine, we cannot show you these videos, but they are available to watch on Al Jazeera's Arabic channels. The civilian cost of the fighting is absolutely immense. Doctors in Sudan have actually mentioned that 70% of hospitals in conflict-impacted zones are non-operational. The Guardian have reported that over 5 million people have been displaced and thousands have been killed. And this conflict comes at a time when Sudan was already under pressure because of enduring many other humanitarian threats. Floods since 2020 have impacted over hundreds of thousands of civilians. There is also great hyperinflation in the country, adding an economic element to the struggles within the nation. Essentially, the crisis in Sudan is a result of an internal power struggle between Burhan and Hemeti, and it has led to the country being in civil war. Ultimately, the civilian population in Sudan is paying the price. The worst recorded abuses that have been carried out against civilians have been at the hands of the RSF forces, Hemeti's RSF forces. The future in Sudan is looking bleak as more people in Sudan consider picking up their weapons to arm a fight against the RSF. Many are aware of the potential dangers of weapons proliferating amongst a population that has seen popular uprisings before. However, many in Sudan are seeing it as they have no other choice, as this dispute between two parties is now affecting all people in Sudan.